Okay, we'll make a start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma la sahlan illa ma ja'altahu sahlan wa anta taj'al al-hazna idha shi'ta sahlan. Rabbi zidni ilma. Allahumma anfa'ni bima 'allamtani wa 'allimni ma yanfa'uni. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas sami'ul 'alim. Yesterday we had again another quite intense lesson, but alhamdulillah we got through a lot. I mentioned quite a few things yesterday. We went through two new rules of stopping. Well, one was a rule of stopping and one was a rule about how to stop. So we'll just quickly go over the stopping rules that we know so far. So the first one, let me just underline that too. So the first one is whenever we stop on a word, and note that I'm not saying ayah. I'm not saying whenever we stop on an ayah, because as we learned yesterday, you can stop at the middle of an ayah. And if you stop on the middle of an ayah, if you run out of breath, then you will still apply these same stopping rules. So that's why I'm saying whenever we stop on a word, not at the end of an ayah. So whenever we stop on a word, we turn the vowel on the last letter into a sakin. That's the first one. The second one that we learned yesterday was whenever we stop on a small ha, on a small ta, we turn it into a small ha and turn the vowel into a sakin. So that's the same as rule one. The new part is just this part. So that's the main thing. That was the rule that we learned yesterday. We learned also that when you stop at the middle of an ayah, you have to, like, if you run out of breath, for example, on this fourth ayah here, if you run out of breath here on this ayah, you have to apply the stopping rule correctly. So, for example, if we were to stop on, if we run out of breath on this word here, then we have to apply the stopping rule on this word. So that would mean we would turn the meme, the last letter of the word, which is the meme, into a sakin. So we would turn that into a sakin, then we would repeat the word and then carry on. So we would read the, if we were to stop here, if we run out of breath here, it would be تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه في يوم كان مقداره 50,000 سنة. So so far that's what we know. How is everyone feeling about those two rules, and how is everyone feeling about the method of practice? I didn't get many voice notes, so I'm not sure how is everyone feeling at the moment. I wonder if you're feeling okay with everything. A5, if you have any questions about anything at all. Again, if there is something that you don't understand, please do ask, because most likely if there's something that you don't understand, it's not because of you, it's most likely because of my own explanations. Maybe I didn't explain it properly, and most likely as well someone else in the classroom will have a similar concern. So if you do have any concerns, do just ask. Don't be shy. So the plan for today is two things. I want to go over A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I want to go over how to read how to read the beginning. Whenever you start reading the Quran, we always read those two things. And I want to introduce a third stopping rule, inshallah. So that's going to be the plan for today, inshallah. So without further ado, let's begin. So Allah says in the Quran, فَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Whenever you recite the Quran, seek refuge in Allah from shaitan. So the way we do that is we say this phrase here. We say, أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Now, unfortunately, on your Quran, it won't really be there. at the start of the surah, you see Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and you see information about the surah, but you don't see A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, which is quite unfortunate. I do think it should be there. At the very least, it should be on top of Fatiha. It should be on top of Fatiha, but it's not there. And that's unfortunate. So, if you don't have it on your Quran, what you can do is maybe get your phone and take a picture of this. Because this is what we say. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. It's in the text that we're using. Slightly different, obviously. The sakins are the circles. So this is the phrase A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Now I'm going to go through how to read this correctly. Okay. So the first thing we do is we need to identify any rules that we can see. So that's just going to be the first thing that we do. Let me just see that. Okay, that's fine. So the rules, stretch heavy letters. Let's identify any heavy letters. Well, alif, ain, waw, dal, these are all fine. We have the word Allah here. So we need to see, is the lam going to be heavy or light? Well, the letter before it is the letter ba. And this ba has a kasra. That means this lam is going to be light. It will not be heavy. It will be light. So this lam is in the word Allah is not light. Is not heavy rather. Carrying on, we have ha, mim, noon, sheen, ya, ta. So the ta is heavy. So we can mark that. And noon, ra. So ra, we need to check what's on top of it. So the ra has a fatha. That means this ra is going to be heavy. And then jim, ya, mim. Okay. So those are the heavy letters. So stretch letters. Are there any stretch letters? Well, we have this dhamma before waw sakin on the ain. Then we have this lam with the standing fatha. Then we have this ta, which is a fatha before alif. And here we have this jim, which is a kasra before ya sakin. So these are the stretch letters. Next thing, anything that's joined together. So we have this ba joined to the lam. This noon is joined to the sheen. The sheen is joined to the ya. And this noon is joined to the ra. I haven't marked the stretch ones. So I haven't marked the dhamma before waw sakin, kasra before ya sakin, because we've already marked it. So there's no point in marking it again. Next thing, identify any qalqalas. Well, there's no qalqalas here. No qalqalas in here. Then ghunnas, again, no ghunnas. You don't need to worry about these things. These are just the main things. Reading this, there's not really any rules per se, but it's just a matter of pronouncing it correctly. We have to practice how to pronounce it correctly. Okay. So the next step of our method is to split it up. So we have one. So we can read this is in one chunk. Then we can read the next chunk over here, and then we can read the last chunk. Okay. So you can split it up into 3 like this. Okay. And then you're just going to practice it using the method. So you're going to build it up. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 2 things, and I'm going to mark it in this gold color. So I'm going to mark, actually I'll mark it in red. So I'm going to mark the ain with a little star. And I'm going to mark the dal with a little star. Okay. So the reason why I've marked these is because this is where most people will make their mistakes. Reading this is not too difficult, but people do make mistakes on it. And generally, these are the 2 letters where you'll see mistakes. You either see a mistake on the ain or a mistake on the dal. The reason you see a mistake on the ain is because it's quite difficult to say, because it's followed after, it comes after the alif. So it takes quite a bit of practice to be able to go from alif to ain without making a mistake, because the alif is from the bottom of the throat, the ain is from the middle of the throat. So to go from a to ru takes a bit of practice. So this is where you usually see mistakes. People can't really pronounce the ain clearly. With the dal, the common mistake is people will say zu. So people will say a'uzu because they're used to saying zal instead of dal. So you want to make sure that you avoid that mistake as well. So we'll just practice this, spend a few minutes. So, ru, ru. Now again, don't rush this part. This part's probably the hardest part, just this word here. So you might need to practice it, and you might take maybe even a few days of practice just to get this word down. Ru, ru, ru. You have to practice. If you can't get the ayn, most likely there are going to be people who can't say the ayn over here. So what you do, how to practice it, is practice the ayn with the dhamma. So practice ru, like that, just by itself, over and over again, maybe 20 times, maybe 50 times. Practice it over and over again till your throat feels a bit more comfortable with the sound. When it feels comfortable, then try it. So then try a'udhu, a'udhu, a'udhu. Okay, it should feel a bit more natural to say it once you practice just the ayn with the dhamma by itself. Okay. Another thing is make sure you keep the alif like alif. So don't say a'udhu, because you're thinking about the ayn. You might accidentally turn this into a ayn too. So you want to keep this from the bottom of the throat, the ayn from the middle. A'udhu billah, a'udhu billahi, a'udhu billahi, a'udhu billahi, a'udhu billahi. And I can't overstate how important it is to get this right. When I was doing my hifz with my teacher Hafiz Ali, so many times I would just start reading carelessly, and he would say you didn't read it properly, because people, they just rush this. They rush saying this, and in rushing it, you're doing a disservice. You're asking Allah for protection from shaitan. This is a big thing to ask. So we need to make sure that we take our time with it. So whenever you start reading Quran, don't just rush a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Take your time with it. Do your best to pronounce every letter correctly. A'udhu billahi. So that's the first chunk. The next part, minash shay, minash shay, ta, minash shayta. Keep that ta nice and round, strong, heavy, and make sure it's stretched. Minash shayta. Don't say ta. Minash shayta is wrong. Minash shayta. Minash shayta. And again, with the method, you want to read each chunk 7 times. Okay. Once you can read both comfortably 7 times, then try putting it together. A'udhu billahi minash shaytan. A'udhu billahi minash shaytan. A'udhu billahi minash shaytan. Okay. Then the last chunk is you want to keep the ra heavy. So nirra, nirra. And over here, I didn't mark it, but the meme would have a sakin on it because we're stopping on the meme. So normally it would have a kasra on it, but here we're just going to turn that kasra into a sakin. So jim, nirrajim, nirrajim, nirrajim. Okay. When you're comfortable with that, try putting everything together. Keep in mind to read the beginning bit slowly. If you read it slowly, you'll have an easier time to read the letters correctly. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Okay. So that is a'udhu billah. This is what we read whenever we start reading Quran. Before you start reading Quran, this is what you should read. Okay. Take your time with it. Most likely you might be struggling with the beginning part, and that's fine. But if you are struggling with it, take time to practice. spend time putting some effort into getting the pronunciation correct, inshallah. So that's the first thing that I wanted to go over today.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Just why is the ra heavy? I missed it.
Yeah, so the ra will be heavy because it's got fatha on top of it. So any ra with a fatha or a dhamma will be heavy. Yeah.
Okay. I thought there was the letter before, which is noon, which is got kasra on it. Okay.
Oh, okay. No, don't worry about that. So
All right.
actually, that's a bit more of an advanced rule. But since you mentioned it, I'll bring it up. So this is quite an advanced rule. I don't normally teach it in the class, because it's very, very small and you can't really tell. Most people won't be able to tell. But for those of you who want to try it, then you can try it. So with the letter ra, whenever you see it with the shadda, so the ra with the shadda, this ra is kind of basically made up of two ra's. You got the ra where you're joining it, so the noon joined to the ra, and then you got the ra with the fatha. So it's kind of like two ra's. So you kind of got a ra with a sakin, and you got a ra with the shadda. So I'll just do that again. So you got a ra with a sakin and a ra with the fatha. Sorry. So this is basically this put together. Okay. So if you were to read it, this ra would have been light because it's the letter before it is the noon with the kasra. So the first half of the ra would be light, and then this ra would be heavy. So what you would do is when you join the noon to the ra. So again, this is a very, very advanced rule. I don't normally teach this. So those of you who just getting used to the letters, don't worry about it too much, because it won't make a huge difference in how it sounds. But for those of you who want to know, then this is why I'm just going through it very quickly. When you join the noon to the ra, the initial sound will be light. So the nir, when you say nir, the ra will be light, as opposed to saying nir, where if you joined it like that, then it would be you're making the ra heavy. But if you say nir, the initial sound is light, and then when you say ra, then that's when the ra will become heavy. So it's going to be half light, half heavy. Light at the beginning, heavy when you say it. So nirra, that's the correct way to say it. Nirra. The initial sound of the ra is light because of the noon with the kasra, and then the ra, when you say with the fatha, it becomes heavy. Again, it's quite an advanced rule, so don't worry too much about it. You'll see similar rule with the lam in the word Allah. For example, if we go to, let me just go to any random page. Okay, so here. So this is just the second page of the Quran. So here, we see Khatam Allahu. So this lam would normally be heavy, right? Okay. So because the letter before the lam is light, the meme is light, then when we join this to the lam, the initial sound of the lam will actually be light. So we won't say, again, this is super light. I feel like I shouldn't really say this, but I'm just going to say anyway. When you join the meme to the lam, the initial sound of the lam is light, and it only becomes heavy once you make the sound of the standing fatha. So you will read, you won't say mallah, you would say mallah. Okay. Khatamallah. So it's quite similar, where the initial sound of the lam is itself light, and then it becomes heavy once you put the standing fatha sound on it. But don't worry too much about this. I don't want you guys to worry about it. And again, it won't affect the sound of it too much. So that's why I'm just saying, make the ra heavy and you'll be correct. It's better to make the ra heavy than to make the ra light. So don't worry too much about it. So if you want to take a picture of this, so you have it somewhere on your phone, so you've got a reference to how it looks, then do take a picture of it now, or a screenshot or something, inshallah. So now what I'm going to do is go through the next thing, which is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So you'll see this at the start of every surah, but even if you're reading Quran, and you're not starting at the start of a surah, then you would just still read this. So we start with the name of Allah. And again, before we do anything, we want to just go through any rules that we can see. So we see any heavy letters. Well, again, we have the name Allah. So we want to see if the lam is heavy or light. So the letter before it is this meme with the kasra. So this lam will be light. So we don't need to worry about it. Ha, that's fine. This ra, sorry about that. So this ra would be heavy because it has a fatha on it. And also this ra would be heavy as well because of the fatha. And that's about it. There's no more heavy letters. Then stretched letters, anything that's stretched. We have the lam in the word Allah is stretched. We have this meme with the standing fatha. And we have the ha with the kasra before ya sakin. So these are the stretched letters. Anything that's joined. We have the ba joined to the sin, meme joined to the lam, ha joined to the ra joined to the ha, noon joined to the ra, and that's about it. Also, this meme at the end with the kasra, that would become a sakin because we're stopping on it. So just putting the sakin there. So this ha would technically be joined to the meme too. Everything else, qalqala, things like that, noon, sakin, ghunna, you don't need to worry about it. There's nothing here. If you want to mark difficult letters, then you might want to mark the ha in Rahman and the ha in Rahim. These are generally the ones where people will get mistake, particularly the ha in Rahim. That's a bit more difficult to say. So again, once we've done this, you want to just split it up. So I'm going to split it up here like this. So I'm not going to split it up at the ha because the ha is joined to the ra. So I'm splitting it up mid-word. I'm splitting it up at the middle of the word because this noon is joined to the ra. So it'd be easier to practice like that. So Bismillah, 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 Bismillah. Okay. Once you're confident with that, try the next part. So here, the main thing to keep in mind is make the ra heavy and round. So don't say ra, say ra, and keep the ha as strong as you can. Hirrah, 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 ma, hirrah, ma, hirrah, ma. Make the ra nice and round and the ha as strong as you can. Hirrah, ma. Once you're confident with that, join both parts together. Bismillahirrahman. 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 Then carrying on. Nirrahim. 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 Again, you want to keep the ra round and the ha nice and strong. Nirrahim. Nirrahim. And then you'll say it all together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And that's how you want to say Bismillah. So if you want to take a picture, you can. You don't need to, because Bismillah will be on your Quran. But that's how you want to say it. You want to take your time with it again. Don't rush it. Take your time because you are starting with the name of Allah and two of His most beautiful names, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. So take your time with it. Read it nice and slowly. Inshallah. So that's how to say A'udhu Billah and how to say Bismillah. Bismillah is a bit easier to say, I think. I think A'udhu Billah is probably a bit more difficult, particularly just the beginning part. So do spend time practicing if you are struggling with it, inshallah. What we'll get on to now, we've got about half an hour left. So what I want to do is go through the new stopping rule, maybe a few more ayat of Surah Al-Ma'arij, and then maybe if there's time at the end, I'll call a few people to read whatever they've practiced over the last few days, inshallah. So whoever would like to read, inshallah, maybe there'll be a chance, inshallah. Inshallah, we'll see how it goes. So yesterday we stopped over here. Just a quick reminder of the stopping rules that we've learned. We've learned that whenever we stop on a word, we turn the vowel on the last letter into a sakin. And whenever we stop on a small ta, we turn into a small ha and turn into a sakin. So a new rule that we're going to learn today is to do with the double fatha, the fathatain, the double vowel, and just the fatha. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly open up the booklet that we used for learning. Okay, and I'm just going to go to the page with the tanween. Okay, so if you look at the tanween, if you remember, we did mention that the fatha is a little bit different. You see that the double fathas, they have a alif after them. Well, most of them, exception of ta. But all the other letters, you see that they have an alif next to them. And I mentioned that that's going to come into play later on in the course. Today, inshallah, we'll see why it's like that. And the reason is, whenever we stop on a double fatha, there's a different rule. So whenever we stop on a double fatha, the rule is we basically get rid of one of the fathas and we turn it into a fatha before alif. Okay. So this ayah here, if we look at it, so if we just look at the last word, let me just use the green pen. So if we're just looking at the last word on this ayah, the word is jamilan, jamilan, jamilan. So that's the word. Now, if we're applying the stopping rule over here, what we do is we get rid of one of the fathas and turn it into a fatha before alif. So instead of reading jamilan, we're going to turn the lam into a fatha before alif, and it will be jamila, jamila. And this rule takes precedent over the second rule. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into rule 3 and this into rule 2. So whenever we stop on a double fatha, we turn it into a fatha before alif. Okay. So I'll just do that in all caps. So fatha before alif. So that's the rule. This is the new rule. So the reason why I've put this as number 2 and the other one as number 3 is if it's a small ta, with a double fatha, I'm not sure if I'll be able to find one here. But for example, if we were to stop on a small ta, and the small ta has a double fatha on it, then we would still apply the same rule. We would still apply rule number 3. So rule number 3 would take over rule number 2 here. So I think if you're confused, just write a 5 in the chat right now. I think I'm not doing a good job explaining this. If you're confused, a 5 in the chat. If you understand what I'm talking about, a 1 in the chat. If you're confused, a 5. Okay. Okay, so I'll explain these again, inshallah. I want to make sure everyone understands it. So the first rule that we learned was whenever we stop on a word, we turn the vowel into a sakin. That's simple. Everyone, inshallah, hopefully understands that one. One moment. So that's the rule. That's number 1, rule number 1. Okay. So now I'm saying rule number 2, even though we learned it third, rule number 2 is if you stop on a word with a double fatha at the end, you turn it into fatha before alif. So this will take precedence over rule number 1. Rule number 1, let me just make it red. So rule number 1 is whenever you stop on a word, you turn it into a fatha, you turn it into a sakin, okay? Now rule number 2 would take precedence over this. So let me just make this blue. So this will take over this. So if it's a fatha before, if it's a double fatha, you will not turn it into a sakin. You will not turn it into a sakin, you turn it into a fatha before alif, okay? Now rule number 3, though we learned it second, I'm making it rule number 3 now. And the rule is, if you stop on a small ta, turn it into a small ha and turn the vowel into a sakin. So this would take precedence over rules 1 and 2. Rule number 3 always takes precedence over rule 1 and 2. Rule number 3 will only apply with the small ta, okay? Only with the small ta. Rule number 2 only applies on the double fatha, and rule number 1 applies everywhere. So I hope this makes sense. Basically, rule number 2 is more important than rule number 1, and rule number 3 is more important than rules 1 and 2. I hope saying it this way makes a bit more sense. Basically, always apply rule number 1, except whenever you see rule number 2, and always apply rule number 2, except whenever you see a small ta, which is rule number 3. I hope that makes sense, inshallah. If not, if you're a bit confused, what you can do is whenever you're reading, just send me a message. If you're not sure how to stop on a particular word, just ask me, inshallah. But those are the rules of stopping, inshallah. So what we'll do is we'll practice the next 3 ayat, and then inshallah, if there's time, I'll listen to a few people. So again, before we start, we want to just break down everything that we see. So heavy letters, stretch letters, joinings, qalqalas, ghunnas, noon sakin tanween, mim sakin, difficult letters, okay? Make sure you have this on hand, a systematic way of going through everything. So heavy letters first. The sad is heavy. I'm gonna just zoom in a bit. Sad is heavy. This side sad is heavy. This ra is heavy, and that's about it. Stretched letters, anything that's stretched. Well, this is joined, this is joined, so none of these are stretched. The thing that's stretched here is this meme. It's a kasra before ya sakin. This would be stretched. And we've just mentioned the rule number 2, stopping rule. If we stop on a double fatha, we turn into a fatha before alif. So the last letter, because of the new stopping rule we learned, will also be stretched. So this is now a stretched letter. Though it does look like lan, we're going to read it as la. So we're going to stop over here like that. Anything that's joined, well, we have the fa joined to the sad, ba joined to the ra, sad joined to the ba, and that's it. Any qalqalas. Sad is not qalqala letter, ra is not a letter of qalqala, ba is a qalqala. So we're going to apply the qalqala rule on this ba here. Any ghunnas, there's no shaddas at all, there's no ghunnas. Any noon sakin or tanween. Well, there is a tanween here on the ra, so we need to look at the next letter to see what rule we will apply. This next letter is jim, so hopefully, inshallah, you'll know what the jim will mean. So just in the chat, tell me which rule do you think we will apply here? From the 4 rules, you've got idhar, iqlab, idgham, and ikhfa. Those are the 4 rules. Which rule will we apply over here? Fantastic, ikhfa, yeah? So we're applying the ikhfa rule on this ra. So we're going to apply a light nasal sound on the ra. So you can do a squiggly line underneath the ra. Here we have a tanween here, but again, as we mentioned yesterday, we're not going to apply any rule over here because we're stopping on it and we're turning it into a fatha before alif. So we're not reading as though it's got a tanween on it. Any mim sakins, no. And any difficult letters, well, that's up to you. If you find sad difficult, then you might want to mark the two sads with a little star underneath. Once you've done that, you can try and read it. So it's up to you if you want to split it up. I mean, this is 3 words. So maybe you might not want to, but if you want to split up, maybe you can just split it up like this. So 1 word and then 2 words. So it's completely up to you. So how would we read this? We read, so here when we join the fa to the sad, you want to keep the fa light, keep the sad heavy. So you want to say fas, fas. You don't want to say fas. Fas is wrong. Fas is wrong because you made the fa heavy. You want to keep the fa light. Fas bir, fas bir, fas bir, fas bir, fas bir. Again, repeat it 7 times. Fas bir, fas bir, fas bir. Then the next part. So here we're doing qalqal on the ba, then an ikhfa on the ra. Sab, ra, sabra, ja, sabra, ja. When you do the ikhfa, make sure that your tongue does not touch the roof of the mouth. Ikhfa is the light nasal sound, and that means the sound is actually coming from your nose and not your mouth. So the sound of this ikhfa should come from your nose, not your mouth. So in order to do that, make sure that after you've pronounced the ra, your tongue does not touch anything in the mouth. Your tongue should just be floating there. Sabra, mi, sabra, jami, la, sabra, jamila, sabra, jamila, sabra, jamila, sabra, jamila. And then once you're confident with it, join the first word with the last 2. Keep in mind to keep the fa light and all the other rules in this half. فاصبر صبرا جميلا فاصبر صبرا جميلا فاصبر صبرا جميلا. And that's this ayah done. So now we can move on to the next ayah. So again, we want to just go through the rules. And again, going through all the rules, it might feel tedious. It might feel like, you don't need to do it, but make sure you do take your time. Even if you're not going to read, if you only have, like, let's say 10 minutes, let's say you only have 10 minutes to spend with your Quran, you have to be wise about how you spend your time. My advice to you is spend those 10 minutes just going through and identifying rules, because what that's going to do is going to help you. Next time you open up your Quran, you've done all the hard work of identifying the rules, and you can just begin practice. Yeah. So if your time is limited, you're better off spending that time identifying all the rules you can see in maybe a line or 2 lines, and then the next time you come to it, you've done the hard work, and then you can just begin. So do make sure that you don't skip identifying everything. So heavy letters in the second ayah, we have alif, nun, ha, mim. These are all light. Ya, ra. So this ra is heavy because it's got a fatha on it. I'm going to just scroll down a bit, make it a bit easier. So that's heavy. Waw, nun, ha, ba, ain, ya, dal. These are all light. Stretch letters. Well, we have this ha with the upside down dhamma. We have the ain which is kasra before ya sakin, and we have this dal, which is the double fatha, but because we're stopping on it, we're going to turn it into a fatha before alif. So we will no longer read dan, we will read da when we stop on it. Next thing is anything that's joined. This alif is joined to the nun, ha is joined to the mim, ra is joined to the waw, and that's it. Any qalqalas? Well, this is a shadda, so it can't be qalqala. Here it's a mim sakin, and here it's a waw sakin, so no qalqalas. Any ghunnas? Well, this noon has a shadda, so we will do the ghunna on this noon. And that's it. Any noon sakin or tanween? Well, there aren't any noon sakins or tanweens. This is a noon with a shadda, so it's not noon sakin. And here the tanween is at the end of the ayah where we are stopping. Question. I've got a question. If we were to carry on, let's say we were to join these two ayat together, which rule would we apply here on this tanween here? If we were to join these two ayat, because I mentioned yesterday you can join ayat, which rule would we apply on this tanween? Question. So write in the chat. You've got a choice of 4. You've got idhar, idgham, iqlab, and ikhfa. So which rule do you think we would apply? Fantastic, yeah? Yep, so you'd apply the idgham with ghunna rule, yeah? The yawman rule, fantastic. Yeah, really, really good. So yeah, so if you were to join it, you would join the dal to the waw, you'd merge it, and you'd apply ghunna on the waw. So you would apply the idgham with ghunna rule. But we're not worried about that, we're just gonna stop here. Mim sakins, well, we have a mim sakin here, but the letter after it is ya, so we don't need to worry about it. And difficult letters, completely up to you, whichever you find difficult, maybe the ain, you might want to mark it with a star. Once you've done that, then you can begin reading this. So ghunna on this noon. Innahum ya innahum ya raw innahum yaraw na innahum yarawna hu innahum yarawnahu. Be careful that when you join, when you have two words together, that you don't stretch anything that's short. So it's very common for someone to say innahum yarawnahu, because on the second word you're not, because coming after the first word, you kind of like your brain's still looking at the letters. Just be careful not to stretch anything that shouldn't be stretched. So innahum yarawnahu ba innahum yarawnahu ba. Make the ayn nice and clear. If your ayn isn't clear when you say it by itself, then don't go back to the beginning and read the whole thing. You have to get it by itself correct first before you try reading it as part of the ayah. So say the as much as you need to until it's as best as you can get it. Then don't go back to the beginning and join it. If you're saying and you can do better, then don't go back to the beginning and just read it. So innahum yarawnahu ba'ida innahum yarawnahu ba'ida innahum yarawnahu ba'ida innahum yarawnahu ba'ida. And keep repeating it until you feel confident with it. Once you do, then go back to the beginning and read from there to there, and see if you make any new mistakes. If you make any new mistakes, fix it, and make sure that you can read both ayat correctly. فاصبر صبرا جميلا إنهم يرونه بعيدا. Okay. And now just the last ayah that we're going over today. So heavy letters. We have this ra with the standing fatha is heavy. The qaf is going to be heavy, and that's it. This ra will be light because it has a kasra on it. and all the other letters are light. Any stretched letters, well, this ra is also a stretched letter. Then we have this ra is a kasra before ya sakin. And here this ba at the end with the double fatha will become a stretched letter. So instead of saying ban, because of rule number 2, we're turning it into a fatha before alif. So because we're stopping on that letter, we're turning into a fatha before alif, so we will read it as a stretched letter. That's it. Anything that's joined, nothing that's joined together. This waw with the shadda is there because of the previous letter. If you were to join these ayat together, then this dal will join to the waw. That's why the shadda is there. Otherwise, it doesn't play any part. Any qalqalas? Well, nothing is joined, so there can't be any qalqalas. Likewise, there can't be any ghunnas. Noon sakin, well, there aren't any noon sakin. Are there any tanweens? No tanweens except the one at the end, which we turn into a fatha before alif. There's no mim sakins because, well, nothing was joined. And any difficult letters, whatever you find difficult, mark it. Maybe the qaf, you might want to mark that with a star. Once you've done all that, then just begin. So, wa, na, ra, wa na ra, hu, wa na ra hu, qa, wa na ra hu, qa. Now, over here, I'm just going to stop for a second. The waw is light. Let me mark these green. The waw is light. The noon is light. The ha is light. Don't make these letters heavy because of the ra. So don't say wa na ra hu. Because of the qaf and the ra, it's easy to make these letters heavy. You want to keep them light. So wa na ra hu. Wa na ra hu, qa. Wa na ra hu, qa. Ri. Wa na ra hu, qari. Ba. Keep the ba light too. Wa na ra hu, qariba. وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. And keep repeating it until you're confident on it. Bearing in mind that though there aren't as many rules on here, it's still easy to make a mistake. If you make a light letter heavy, that is a mistake. So this is why we mark it. We mark the heavy letters to make sure that not only to make the heavy letters heavy, but to avoid making the light letters heavy. Keep the light letters light. Same thing with the stretched letters. We mark the stretched letters not just to show us that these are stretched, but so that we avoid stretching anything that's short, so that we don't say something like وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا or وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. Those kind of mistakes of stretching something that's short, that's a major mistake. And we want to avoid the major mistakes, inshallah. So make sure that you practice it. And once you're confident on all of it, then try reading from here, from Fasbir up to here, and try reading it as best as you can. Keep in mind all the tajweed rules that we've gone over along the way. Fasbir sabran jamila. So over here, the qalqala and the ikhfa. Fasbir sabran jamila. إنهم يرونه بعيدا ونراه قريبا. Okay, and repeat that. If you make mistakes along the way, it's fine. Just try and fix them, inshallah. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So maybe if anyone would like to volunteer and read, I'll be able to give you feedback, inshallah. Brother Shahriya, your hand went up first, so you can go first.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Ustaz.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So try reading from A'udhu Billah and read as much as you can. Wherever you feel comfortable reading up to, read up to there, yeah?
Okay, sure. So أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Okay. سأل سا سأل
You want to
سا
say
oh my bad.
Bismillah as well?
Oh بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سأ سأ لا
So, so instead of spelling out, try and just read it fluently.
Okay.
If you've practiced, inshallah, yeah.
Yeah, sure. سأل سائل بعذاب وقع بوقع okay. للكافرين ليس له دافع. I think that's it. I'll keep it to there.
That's fine. So mashallah, it was good. You did a few things that were really, really well there. You did the mad nicely. You did the iqlab rule here, good. A few things, letter pronunciation wise, the ayn wasn't clear here, and the ayn wasn't clear here. So you might want to practice the ayn, inshallah. Over here, the idgham with ghunna wasn't applied correctly. So you want to join the ba to the waw and apply ghunna. So biwaqi', also stretch the waw. It's a stretched letter here. Over here on lil kafirina laysa lahu dafi', you stretch the noon and the sin. So you kind of said lil kafirina laysa. Yeah. Now this is more common than you think. I don't want you to feel bad. Oh, I made so many mistakes. No, don't feel bad. It's something to practice. If you make a mistake, it's something to practice. And I'll tell you how to practice it now, inshallah. So the brothers who making similar mistakes where you're stretching something that should not be stretched. For example, this noon here. If you're stretching this noon, the reason why you're stretching it is you're looking at the second word. You're looking at this word here. And while you're looking at it, you're just stretching the last letter on it. So you're saying lil kafirina laysa, and as you know, while you're looking at this word, you're still keeping that sound up from this one. So the way to just stop it is repeat it over and over again. Repeat these two words until you're able to just immediately read it without having to stretch. So until you're able to read lil kafirina laysa. And a nice way to do it is just focus on this part here. So just practice Rina lay, Rina lay, Rina lay, Rina lay. And this is a hifz tip as well for those who want to memorize Quran. Basically, when you're memorizing Quran, usually what happens is you memorize one ayah, you memorize the second ayah. Then when you try to read both of them off memory, you can read the first ayah, but then you forget how the second one starts. So a tip for hifz students is to join the two ayat together. So to practice the joining between the two ayat. So then when you read it in one go, you just join the ayat together, and then you don't even need to remember both. You just remember one in a sense, in a way. So we're kind of doing similar thing here, where you're joining these two words together and you're just practicing how to join it. So I noticed as well that you stretched the scene over here on laysa. So you stretched this scene. And again, the reason is that this word here. So while you're looking at this word, how it starts, you end up stretching this letter. So again, the way to stop it is just practice reading these two together. So you want to practice laysa lahu, laysa lahu, laysa lahu. And eventually you're going to get that muscle memory with your tongue, and you'll be able to read both. Lil kafirina laysa lahu dafi'. And you'll become much more confident. Now, again, even if you don't read a lot, even if you just do two ayat, if you do it correctly, then alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I don't want you guys to think that if I'm practicing like this, I'm not going to get anywhere with my Quran. No, if you practice it like this, you're going to get very, very, very far with your Quran. You'll get very far. You have to be patient with yourself when you make mistakes, okay? When you make mistakes, the mistakes mean that you have something to work on, okay? So our brother here, our brother Shahriya, work on your ayn pronunciation. Maybe go over the idgham rule, and those stretches that should not be done, just means you need to practice that ayah a few more times, inshallah. Yeah. I know a few people have got their hands up. Unfortunately, I won't be able to listen to you now because we've come to the end of the class. So if you want me to listen to you and give you feedback, send me a voice note, inshallah. And that's the homework for tonight. The homework for tonight is send me a voice note and read from, at the very least, read A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and in the last 3 ayat we've gone over today. But if you want to read from the beginning again, so for example, if you made a mistake, if you sent me one today, you made a mistake, and I've responded to you and I've told you what to practice, you can go over it, read from the beginning again and up to here. Okay, so that's the homework for tonight. If you again, the goal is not to reach here. Don't think to yourself, oh, I haven't read up to here, so I can't send Ustad a voice note. If you only go over one ayah, if you only have time to read one ayah, then just send me that one ayah. Send me that voice note, inshallah, and I'll be able to respond to you and I'll be able to give you feedback on it. I won't be, angry with you or upset with you if you only send me one ayah. I won't, even if even if it's not perfect, do make sure you send it, inshallah, because then, it shows that you've practiced it, and, you'll get feedback and you'll benefit as well, inshallah. So that's the homework. Anything else I need to mention? Yes, feedback. For feedback for this course, I'm just going to mention it one more time. Make sure that the brothers who haven't filled it out, please, I request you. My request is that you spend just 10 minutes, fill out the feedback. It will help me a lot, and it'll help all the other teachers who teach this course a lot. The reason why is we teach this course every month, and the students for next month, they will benefit from the feedback. Number one, the feedback is used to kind of promote the course. If people who have benefited it, they write down that they've benefited, then it's going to kind of encourage others to join it. And also, if there's something that you want to see changed or something that you think can be improved for future students, then inshallah, if future students benefit from it, then inshallah, you'll get a portion of that reward. If the quality of teaching improves because of a feedback that one of you guys have said, then inshallah, you'll get a portion of that reward. So, that's, I want everyone to, inshallah, just spend a few minutes filling out the feedback form, inshallah. So that's just a reminder for that, inshallah. If anyone has any questions about anything from today's class or anything at all, do feel free to message me. Quick reminder of our stopping rules. These are the ones we've gone over now. So just make a note of that. Particularly the one today was this second one. Send me your homework, inshallah, whenever you can. I think there's one brother who sent me a recording. I didn't get time to respond to you. Inshallah, I'll respond to you when I get the chance. And I'll see everyone tomorrow, inshallah. Okay. Tomorrow, we will go over Surah Fatiha. Surah Fatiha is for tomorrow, and it's one that you don't want to miss. So do make sure everyone come to tomorrow's class. We're going to go over Surah Fatiha, inshallah. I'll see everyone tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.